In chat, someone's just mentioned Iron Faned at
Oh God,
Seattle
yes.
Core Flu.
Gosh, when was?
Well, the photo is in the cover of Plokta in April 2000, so it'll be in early 2000.
Yeah, no, it was while I was pregnant with Jonathan because I had been trying to get pregnant for years at that point, and we decided to take this trip to Seattle, the home of coffee, and about 2 weeks before we went, I got up one morning and went, "Oh, I don't fancy a cup of coffee." Couldn't drink coffee the whole time I was in Seattle. The smell of coffee just made me feel terribly ill. But yes, so we did it, and Marianne there was this inflatable cow that thinking J. Leslie Adams had brought from Madison. Somebody had brought from Madison.
Yeah. I'm putting a link to the cover, which has a picture of the cow in the chat. Hang on.
And Marianne, so there was this inflatable cow, and Marianne adored it. She was about 3. Yeah, so she was 3 at the time, and this was just like, and she had a great time in Seattle in lots of ways, but one of the ways that she had a particularly great time was with this cow that just did not survive the weekend because she just loved it. It was inflatable, and she just loved it to death.
Do you remember Marianne's toucan?
Marianne, the Adelphi, oh dear, yeah.
The Adelphi.
That is also in Plokta. So Marianne had a toucan at
one of the conventions at
one of the Adelphi conventions,
and it went into the chandelier.
And we'd like tied it to everything, and it still tore away from it's a mylar balloon, and we went out to a restaurant and it just tore away from the edge of her pushchair and flew off into the sky, and she was terribly upset.
I mean, something you can't see from Mike's link to the cover of that issue is that it was right stapled.
Yes, because we were imitating a Japanese.
Yes,
we were trying to do a Japanese thing.
Shocking cultural appropriation, I'm afraid.
Yeah,
because we may. There are a lot of very.
And of course, and we cheated in Unfaned.
Yeah.
Well, we were given a week's notice that we'll be asked to do a fanzine on one of 3 topics, and the topics were salmon, correction fluid, and I forget the last one. So we just wrote a bunch of articles that were appropriate to all 3 topics.
Yeah, and then we did put them together. That fanzine is around. Jerry said she's got the stuff with the intention of publishing them, but the fanzine exists somewhere. Maybe not on the internet.
But a lot of Plokta was like that. We would just riff off something, and then we'd riff off that, and then we'd riff off that.
Alcohol may have been involved in all of this riffing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was always
behind. Oh yeah, no, we were always pissed.
They had to explain to me who Harry Potter was when they wanted a Harry Potter cover.
Yeah, we actually explained to you what the internet was.
You still do. A cartoon fairly recently of Alison and her high-tech fortress of solitude, and me in a cave with a lamp and a carrier pigeon. Some things don't change. We had one point where Julia was the only person not using an Apple of some description. That's including Marianne and Jonathan. It was the holdout for Microsoft.
I am a Microsoft holdout, yeah.
Yeah, no, certainly Sue drew pictures, and my family's early family life is very well documented in Sue's art. That was the other thing I was going to do loads of, but it's all there in the fanzine, which you can still read.
Yeah.
So we won a Hugo. That was fun. Recommend it. Yeah. We kind of went riding through Glasgow on the top of a
Open top
double-decker
bus.
bus.
Yeah, and in
Open top
05,
bus.
we also ran the fan lounge, the fan bar, and the fan program at that Worldcon.
Yes, which was
Yeah.
definitely. So we used the Argyle suite with the real ale, not quite where it is now, but where it was this year, but much the same setup, except instead of that room space all being taken by program generally, we, with the help of Claire and Mark, amongst other people, ran the fan program in there.
Yeah.
With massive great sheets of foam core that we got decorated by fan artists.
But we had a lot of sofas because we went round. We had two sorts of furniture in that space because the idea of the Argyle bar was that it was kind of one of these bars that people shimmy around and don't ever sit down in outside program space. And we furnished the program space, not the program halls, but the lounge, by going up to the landing, to all of the landings in the Crown Plaza and grabbing the chairs and sofas and putting them in the fan lounge.
With
So people were like, this hotel's fine, but it could take a long time for the lift to arrive and there's nowhere to sit. And we were like,
we did the same thing with the beer, which came from the other side of the trading estate, from a little brewery, and we basically taught the hotel how to look after real ale.
Right. The hotel, the manager who was like the weekend the on-site manager at the weekend, had never experienced beer before. So the brewery sat there with him on probably the Wednesday, this being a Worldcon, and kind of taught him how to tap a barrel. And they had put plastic sheeting down under the stillage because they're not totally stupid, but he had never done this before in his many years of the catering trade, and he was wearing his he was not wearing a leather apron, he was wearing his Crown Plaza suit, which was just drenched from top to toe in beer, and that was kind of how the weekend went.
And we drank the brewery dry.
We drank
the other furniture we got for the Worldcon was from IKEA. We are not the only convention to have had this idea. And so the first item of programming in the fan lounge was, okay, so you guys, you see this bar? Do you fancy sitting down to drink? Right, well, here's an Allen key. And
assemble your furniture.
And I think somebody told me that Scotland had not, in fact, banned smoking at that point, but I think the Crown Plaza might have. So we couldn't have it. So we couldn't have. We'd been worrying for months about whether we should have a smoking lounge, and because that was a big deal at conventions at the time. And then I think the Crown Plaza said, "Oh no, not inside the hotel." And I was like, "Well, is there any place for people to smoke outside?" And they were kind of like, "So there's this little grassy area outside the Crown Plaza, and we bought a load of IKEA garden furniture, very cheap, and stuck it in there, like 4 tables and 16 chairs. And we went back for the Eastercon the following year, and they were still using it." They were just like, okay, some convention bought us a beer garden.
Just checked. The Scotland smoking ban in public buildings started in March the following year. Oh, yes, no, sorry, Claire's
because I've had this argument with somebody this year, and so I knew the details on that one. But it seems quite long. It seems such a long time ago that we were all smoking at conventions. I mean, we weren't smoking at conventions, but significant numbers of people were smoking at conventions.
And we won Hugo's. And we played ring toss. We sent Abby Brown to buy champagne for us.
We'd go for tokens.
We'd go for tokens.
That was the first convention where we sent underage people to buy alcohol for us with our
I don't think we realised she was underage at the point where we said go to the bar and buy a bottle of champagne
I think we could
for
probably
us.
have worked it out.
She was 16. If we'd thought about it, but no, we didn't think about it.
Yeah,
she didn't look 16.
She told us afterwards. She never got carded.
She was working in a pub.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah.
We had a total of 4 Hugos because I'd got the art Hugo, and you 3 had got the fanzine Hugo. And somebody, and I can't remember if it was me or someone else, had Indian bangles on that were very light. And as Steve said, we used we played ring toss with the bangles over the Hugos.
Now I'm going to say I thought they were glow sticks. You know, the sort.
Oh no, they were bangles. There were somebody's bangles. May have done it with glow sticks as well.
Yeah, I'm not sure I'm not sure. My Hugo has had a distinct squint ever since. And we also won the Hugo in 2006, which was very nice. And I was
a complete surprise.
I was camping. I was at a festival camping, and at the time, Pat McMurray, who I'm still blaming, lived around the corner from me, and so I got a message on my phone. This was probably a little a phone that had text but did not otherwise have smart features, saying, "Could you give me a call?" And I was like, "Oh my God, Pat's texted me. You know, something terrible must have happened to my house because he was." And I'd completely forgotten that we had asked him to accept in the unlikely event we won a Hugo in Los Angeles when we didn't know anyone a word attending.
I got an actual phone call from him at about 3 a.m. UK time.
Yes, well, I think I probably would have done if I'd answered my phone in my tent in a field in Oxfordshire.
But no, we were not expecting to win that one. It turned out to be the inertia effect.
Yes, so yeah. That's why
discussed in Octothorpe recently, yes.
Yes, as discussed. I don't think we knew then, though. You know, I think there's a lot of stuff where you kind of look back and you go, "Oh, this is obviously what had happened." That if you win a Hugo, then people who have not bothered. I don't know on what basis they've been voting. Actually, I do know on what basis they've been voting, but people who've not bothered to check you out go, "Oh, if they've won, maybe they are worth checking out." And some of them go, "Wow," and some of them go, "Oh, this is not good. Why would anyone vote for this? Where are my serious science fiction fanzines?"
So Edie says, "Why did we stop?" We sort of ran down.
Why did we stop? Yeah, so a couple of things happened. Mike and Flick moved to Kent, and our weekends got even boozier, and even more laid back. And so that became harder. I think when I was talking about it being a really good thing when the kids were small, once the kids were kind of teenage, it became a little bit harder in lots of ways.
And I don't know about you, but I found that I was running dry. I was writing a lot of stuff for work, and I couldn't write the kind of weird stream of consciousness shit that I was doing for Plokta.
Well, and also the future kind of caught up with us. A lot of Plokta was about living kind of the 2010s lifestyle, but in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Or the 1990s.
Yes, and I don't think I think we stopped being quite as far ahead of the game in terms of what we were doing and the way we were doing it. So I mean, that's become a lot of the stuff I kind of look at it and I go, "Oh, but you know, a cover like things like the covers. Oh, a cover like that would be quite easy to put together now." And yet
it was a lot harder when we did it.
And the lengths I went to get some of the collage effects in Plokta.
But everything we did was hard when we did it and is a lot easier now.
Yeah.
Well, some of the things were hard when we did it. It's hard when we started doing it, but got easier while we were doing it.
True.
But there was a whole thing, because there's lots of jokes at the beginning about Steve might put a network spur to the living room.
Yes.
And so we didn't, we didn't have network computers in the house. We used a program for a while called Sub-Ether Edit, which was a program that allowed people to, that's a great example of something that took bloody ages to do. That's one where I had to Photoshop the strings back in. Because it was Thunderbird. Yeah. So actually the 21st century. But that's 23 years ago now. So yeah. This was that everyone loves that one. So that one we did. They are dressed the clothes that Mike and Flick are wearing, and not. There's no Photoshop involved there. That is what they were wearing, and we took them to the garden and photoshopped them on something that was absolutely not a green screen.
But there was a lot of collage. I mean, the things like the Indian one. Oh, and Middle Plokta. a lot of work went into that.
Well, that had two state levels of work because there was the Photoshop, but there was also there are an enormous number of jokes on that cover, not all of which are maybe readable.
I think they are all readable on the PDF that's online.
So Mordor is Croydon, but Mount Doom is Addiscombe, actually.
Yeah, I was living in Croydon at the time.
Yes.
But the whole of Plokta's like that. It's full of little jokes that we would write a joke for maybe one person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We always said we'd annotate it, and we never did.
Yeah. But
So,
we would get locks, we'd get people saying, that's actually very funny. You probably don't realize that. And we sweated blood over some of those jokes.
I mean, there's a joke on one of the it's a long player cover in there at ED, 33 1/3, which is one of my favorites. But we did vinyl records, and then each of the vinyl records has a track listing. And one of the tracks is 1952 Vincent Clark Gestetner, which is a joke that I thought only Patrick Nielsen Hayden would find funny. That was the plan. I was pretty sure that Patrick would fall off his chair laughing at it if he read it, and indeed he did. Maybe I might have had to point it out, but I had to look at this cover and he found it. It was really funny.
But yeah,
but
it's
so
like
there's a lot of
fractal jokes. It's fractal jokes. You keep
there's
going,
there's a lot of stuff. And one of the things I find annoying about quite a lot of popular culture now is that quite often there'll be a joke, but they'll tell it 2 or 3 times to make sure there is no chance that you didn't miss it. And I think that's a little bit sad. I was admiring the Al Yankovic movie because it does not do that. It just has loads and loads and loads of jokes, and you will not get them all. And I think that's good. I think things that where later you could go and annotate and say, well, what? So the cover.
I mean, things like Futurama are like that. You know, there's a load of background jokes that you're not expected to get.
Yeah.
Yeah, but when you do get one, you go, well, that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Like, for example, Sodra has mentioned Super Marianation, yes. But there's a lot of jokes on that Thunderbirds cover. I mean, you know, so some of the jokes have some of the covers have more was. What were you all doing outside fan? Oh, why else? Yeah, I think working? I was going to say, I think that collaborative projects have a they're kind of like drawing whiskey, right? So you have a part where it's not coming good, and then you have a kind of thing when everything's going really, really well and you're doing absolutely your best possible work as a collaboration.
Storming, performing.
And then I think maybe we didn't realize that it was coming to an end at the point where it was. But I mean, the last couple of they're fine, but they are not. We struggled to get them out in a way that we never did when we were in the peak, and I think we just kind of run out of what we're doing together. We've done lots of other things since.
Yeah,
we've got sort of a couple of half-started issues which, you know, didn't make it beyond a page or so.
Yeah, we've done newsletters almost every non-US Worldcon since the 05 one.
Not Helsinki, I don't think.
Not Helsinki. But we did Dublin, we did Montreal, we did Australia, we did Japan.
Oh, so the Australian newsletter,
3 or 4.
did, because we had a model for doing newsletters by then, where we dump all the text into a Google. That's what I was going to say about sub-ether editors. It was online collaboration. I mean, years before anybody else was doing it, that you could collaborate and work on the same document at the same time. And then Google Docs came along, and everyone does it now. I mean, there's an example, but the newsletters are done by dumping everything into a Google Docs file and then pulling stuff out. So I edited issues of the Aussiecon newsletter from London while Australia was asleep. So I go to work, I'd come home from work, all the stuff. Everyone in Australia was in bed. I got it all out. I laid out a newsletter and I sent it over to Flick to proofread in the morning and then print.
So some of us were in Australia, and
I think
some of
everyone
us were in
except
the
me.
UK.
I don't think Sue was in Australia.
No.
No, Flick and I and Steve and Julia were in Australia.
Yeah. So we've done lots of convention newsletters.
We didn't do newsletters at 2014 UK Worldcon, where we were all a bit busy running it.
Flick did it.
Oh, she did.
Actually,
no, you're right.
yes,
Flick did
she
it.
did. Yep.
Yeah, Flick did it. Flick did do it.
No, Pitch and Post. It's a very good newsletter. She worked very hard.
Yeah.
Edie said, what were we doing outside fandom? And I was working for the civil service and early issues. I think Steve was doing quite a big kind of he was doing consultancy work, and early issues of Plokta, you can tell. And gradually, by about issue 6 or 7, we were starting to get extremely nervous about saying anything about the
it was issue 8 that was the problem.
We got a cease and desist.
We got a cease and desist. Because
I
wrote about the work that I didn't write about the work that I was doing. I wrote about the work environment, because
we wrote about the ducks.
We wrote about the ducks. There was a large building with four quadrants within it, with gardens, and they would let ducks go from one to the other. And I thought this was funny, and we thought this was funny, and we wrote something generally funny about it in our usual collaborative riffing off stuff fashion. And about 2 years later, that organization finally got on the internet, searched for their name, and ta-da, the top, I don't know, 3rd hit for whoever they were turned out to be Plokta. They were not happy.
We had fabulous page rank, because in the days before SEO, Mike knows about how page rank worked because he was working for Rightmove at some of this time.
I was, yeah, for a lot of that time, I was working. Well, I started working at a 25-person startup, and it ended up in the FTSE 100 eventually.
Yeah, but he understood how page rank worked, and we didn't do any SEO deliberately, but we were linking in and out from a lot of sites that at the time were considered very reputable. And so Plokta used to hit. So we did an article about doing a scientific test on the usefulness of chocolate teapots.
Which still gets a load of hits.
And that is still it's been cited multiple times. People have done realer research based off it. People have done research on whether other chocolate shapes are have greater utility than a teapot shape. No, they don't. Not for making tea. There was many discussions about whether a chocolate teapot is more or less useful than a chocolate fire guard.
But we were there first.
Yeah. So we're no longer very high up the Google results for chocolate teapot.
You are a Marvel character, Mike.
Oh yeah, we are a Marvel. Yes. We're a character of the Marvel universe. I'm looking forward to Plokta, to Dr. Plokta, becoming actually getting featured in some Marvel movie at some point.
This is because
seems unlikely.
This is because Paul Nell was a guest of ours, and therefore Dr. Plokta became a character.
Paul was a guest at the last PloktaCon, the one in Sunningdale. We've not mentioned PloktaCon Pie.
Oh yeah, so we did 4 and a bit Plokta.cons. We didn't really. So the third one was really run by Flick and James Bacon.
Yeah, it was a one-day event in
combination
South London.
PloktaCon and DangerCon, and
so I'm interested by Kurt's comment, because he's saying A lot of fannish stuff generally has been built on the foundation of previous fannish work by others, but Plokta seems to have avoided that. Do you all think of Plokta as having been born independently of classic fandom, or do you feel that there's a traditional foundation if one digs down enough? You don't have to dig very deep. It's full of traditional fandom.
Yeah, I mean, we were all well established in UK fandom. UK fandom is the obvious resentment of tradition. No, teenage gamers on speed. Andy Hooper called us teenage gamers on speed, and we were none of us were teenagers.
We were in our 30s at least, or
yeah,
getting off. We were about 30. We were sort of 30,
Yeah.
30s, low 30s. When we
mid-30s probably.
Yeah, yeah. He also was like, well, here's Plokta, there's Plokta 1, but will there be a Plokta 2? And we did 40 of them.
but yeah,
so no, we all read fanzines. We all went to Attitude, right? So we were, I mean, Attitude is in some ways not as traditional as many fanzines, but we were well established in British fanzine fandom, just not maybe in the more. We didn't know a lot of the American fanzine fans. We got to know them through Plokta, and John Berry, the Irish John Berry, wrote for us a couple of times towards the end of his life. No, Andy said so he didn't think there'd be another one, and he thought we were teenage gamers on speed. And I've never felt the need to take stimulants.
I have misspent you.
Well, apart from coffee, in large quantities.
Oh yeah, apart from coffee, indeed.
Which she usually leaves to cold, and there's half of it's left in the cup. Come on, let's be honest.
So, and what have we been doing since? I did not start a podcast, and so Claire described me as one of fandom's great starters in her guest of honor talk at the Worldcon, in Claire Mark's guest of honor talk at the Worldcon, and Octothorpe is something that I did not start because it's absolutely John Coxon's fault. So he kind of, I was going to say, rang me up. No. Ho. He texted me and said, let's do a podcast, and we have to chat about it.
But we did talk about doing a Plokta podcast.
We did.
A couple of times.
Yeah, I think at the time when podcasts were really hard. I mean, we'd have had to get like the reel-to-reel tape out and
also,
it.
We didn't have John Coxon to edit it for us.
Yeah, no. I mean, the reason why Octothorpe happened is that John offered to edit. I was like, I've wanted to do a podcast since the beginning, since the dawn of podcasts. But I'm not sure I have the time to edit it. And John was like, I'll edit it. That's it.
But Octothorpe is a bit different, though. I mean, Octothorpe's a bit different to the way Plokta worked.
A Plokta podcast would have been very different from Octothorpe. Octothorpe is come back in 40 years, Edie, and we could do the secret history of Octothorpe.
I mean, I don't know if you've come across a podcast called Trash Future, which I listen to occasionally. It sounds a lot like if Plokta was a podcast.
Yeah. I mean, I think we'd have had segments. I feel like we'd have had segments if we'd been a podcast. We'd have had like, and now it's the bollocks column.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, we were rigorous about cutting things down. You know, we would you'd put a lock in, or we would shrink people's ducks. We would cut articles. We would change what people were saying.
We didn't much change what they were saying, but we brutalized locks. We didn't change the words.
Yeah.
And in fact, we didn't change the words almost at all. We just kind of edit it to sharpen it, but we also edited for space. And I think, so a production team that shall be nameless, after I'd sent some large thing into them, said, oh, it's okay. It's only a PDF, so it doesn't matter how long it is. And I think this world where you go, oh, well, we are not constrained for space, we will print as much as we like, is not necessarily a good one. I think the discipline of saying, oh no, it needs to be really, really short. Yes, Yvonne Rouse was the duck shrinker. We just made some jokes about it.
But we
Yvonne was
shrank a lot of stuff.
We
shrank a lot of D West stuff.
Yeah, he never got angry with us for that. He didn't like Plokta very much. We didn't very.
Yeah.
We did one thing we did when Curtis writes about one thing about our fannish tradition is that we didn't quite understand how to look after fan artists, and we did piss a lot of them off, quite rightly so. So I will be better now.
But
so.
talking about shrinking stuff, we discovered that this year's Aussiecon newsletter that shrinking it to 35 words per article is too much.
Worldcon newsletter, but yes.
Worldcon newsletter, yes.
Yeah. I'm not sure he really did. I think I would have had a big argument if I had actually had time to help. So yes, so that's so at Worldcon I was doing fans. Sue wasn't at the Worldcon.
No.
This last Worldcon.
Oh yes, questions. Yes. Are we all getting? Yeah, no, we've run out of things to say. We do still meet up every now and then. For healthy fruit drinks. Yeah,
Healthy
we all
fruit
missed Sue
drinks.
at the Worldcon, but you'd have hated it, Sue.
Yes,
I'm
so,
not going to discourage you. I'm not going to encourage you to come to them. They're too big.
Everyone,
So
start getting your questions ready, because I think in a few minutes we're going to call for any other questions people have. One thing I'll stick in is that it's very clear that you all are you're not consumers of science fiction fandom. You make it, and it sounds like you haven't had a quiet day in your life because you're always doing something. You're always active participants. And I wish kids today would be a lot more like that. But it seems that that kind of activism, not activism's the wrong word, that kind of participation from starting in Filk and doing the fanzines and working on the conventions and doing a little bit of everything is less popular, especially in the US, than once it was. So
seems pretty popular in the UK.
I think you're right. I think that may be Sure, ma'am.
I think UK fandom has always had more of a sense of being one fandom than US regionals.
I came in through the fandom ghettos. You know, I went to Trek cons even though I'd never watched Star Trek, and there was a lot of fandom ghettos. You know. That weren't, you know, the media fans were not part of the fannish zeitgeist in lots of ways, you know, and the anime fans were a different stream and a different convention, and you know, it's fannish fandom is conventions I feel are some way more welcoming now than they were. Because of the internet, people now know people in other fandoms, and that when I first started, you know, Geetha and I would go to conventions and not see a single other fannish fan at them.
Yeah.
I'm looking away because Bella's just gone hunting. There's a daddy long legs in the room.
Grace just gone to find food.
I think so there was a whole thing. There was this thing that traditional fanzine fandom, when we got started, because Follicon, which was the Eastercon that Mike and I worked on, was a contested Eastercon. I worked out that there's been like 4 contested Eastercons, and I've been on all of the contested bids, which is not great. I'm not really that angry, but there was kind of a cultural war going on at the time between people who thought that the traditional fanzine bits were the only people who kind of liked proper science fiction.
Yeah.
And that the Follicon, which was I will remind you, half of Follicon was a bunch of Cambridge graduates who read everything, and the other half of Follycon was a bunch of Brighton reenactors who read everything. So it was always nonsense. And this is still the case where people are kind of going, oh, but look at all these people, they're not proper fans. If you actually start talking to them, you realise that they do, in fact, as well as watching a lot of film and television, which, by the way, traditional fans also do, they also read a lot of books.
Well, I mean, the big joke is that in the UK, at least, every convention is now Mexicon. Every convention has a lot of serious literary programme in a way that didn't happen in the 80s and 90s.
I think Claire Briley of Croydon has a question, and I think we are not worthy, so we should take it.
Yeah, go ahead.
Hello, Mr. Plokta.
Hi, Claire.
So I wanted to ask you, ideally about Plokta itself, but it could be about the rest of your illustrious Spanish careers if you prefer. Just for each of you, what is the thing that you did that you're proudest of? Might not be your favourite thing, but what is the thing that you really feel you can look back on and go, I did that, or we did that, and I'm glad that happened.
As in the thing that we're proudest of having written or drawn?
Yeah,
or...
whether it's a whole issue or a single contribution, or I mean, it could be, you know, the entire endeavor itself. I don't know, but I was just curious as to whether you have wildly different answers or whether you are of one mind in that respect as well.
Oh, mine's going to be wildly different to any of theirs, I can tell you that.
Well, off you go, Sue.
Mine's quite recent. Do you want me to tell you mine, Claire?
Please.
Recently, as in about 12 months ago, I had an entire chapter of somebody's dissertation now published as a book about my slash stories.
Oh, brilliant.
It's I don't even like Wolverine, but it's like the high point of my life. And I've been on podcasts about it and things like this because a gentleman in America did his dissertation on X-Men slash, which is started out in fandom in 1970 something, and I was that's possibly that because I helped him get his dissertation done and everything. So that's mine.
I mean, in my case, I did a whole. I mean, the whole Plokta oeuvre, I think, is probably part of it, but I did a number of parodies, playing off things. I did one on an Attitude Con rep done as a pirate story. We did a Lord of the Rings spoof, and in each of those cases, I started writing it, and then everybody else polished it, and it was that process that I am proudest of, I guess.
Yeah,
Alice.
I'm gonna have to say some of the covers I'm just enormously pleased with. The cover of Plokta 36, which we haven't mentioned yet, Bad Gifts. This was at a time when people were being encouraged to buy Christmas gifts like a goat for a needy family in Africa, and so I did, like, you know, £40 provides a big box of Chinese fireworks for an East London boy with an ASBO. So I might have to explain what ASBOs are for Americans. An ASBO is an antisocial behavioural order that you give to, and I love that cover, and there's quite a lot of other art from Plokta that I kind of go, oh, you know, this was good. I think, oh, it's still good.
A lot of the art was very collaborative as well.
Oh yeah, no, you're gonna have to zoom out, I think. Yeah, so often people would suggest jokes and then we put it in.
Yeah,
that seems to have, yeah.
Plokta was very, very collaborative. I could think of 3-word jokes where a different word was contributed by a different person. So 3 different people contributing words to a single 3-word joke.
The first rule of Plokta was do not listen to Julia, because 18 to 90% of what Julia said, we went, no, and the other 10% was pure gold.
Very
there's
true.
a fantastic picture that Sue did of Sue. Also, Sue drew amazing pictures of my family. As I said, there's one of us all on the back of a bike, and there's one that I use now for eBay cards where she kind of did us a change of address card with Marianne in a packing crate saying Marianne said goo in Plokta. That was all she said for many years, long after you would expect a child to have learned to talk, and in fact, indeed, she had learned to talk.
But having an artist as part of the Cabal was really important to the overall.
Two artists, Steve. Two artists.
Okay, yes.
But my stuff was never quick. I mean, I'm much quicker now. But Sue's ability to turn art instantly so we'd be like, oh no, we need a picture like this. We need a picture of a snake with a Marianne-sized lump in the middle of the snake, and we need and all the pictures of Marianne tormenting her little brother, because we had a lot of sibling rivalry pictures.
Can I pin Mike down to answer the question as well?
Yeah, I think my favourite bit in Plokta that's primarily me is the Chessman Conrep from issue 37, the Life on Mars Conrep, which is there on the web if you want to go and look, issue 37.
I'm just about to put that in chat again so that.
My favourite fannish thing that wasn't Plokta is probably Worldcon 3, which I think was kind of a mold-breaking Worldcon. It set the template for European Worldcons that's been followed ever since, being very bigger than American Worldcons with a lot of serious programming. And the fan village concept was actually Alison invented, or Alison and Emily Arrow invented.
Emily Arrow. I mean, I think most of the good ideas were Emily's. I was very sad this year when a lot of the things that we had said about how you break up the lines in those rooms so that it doesn't look like serried ranks of things has apparently been forgotten in the last 10 years. It wasn't that hard. Yeah, this is Plokta on Mars with my not very good homage to Atom cover. And then the first chunk of the fanzine is all.
It's set in
the
Korea.
Chessman Conrep.
Yes.
And we did it in Korea, but we couldn't resist putting a Photoshop in it.
A convention I wasn't actually at because I was 8 at the time, but I was living on the island a bit away from it.
But I think
and that's another on plot 12 on page 12 of that. If you scroll down, Edie, there's one of many pictures that Sue did of the whole Cabal that we should probably have fished out. This one as hippies.
Yes.
The Scooby-Doo characters, wasn't it?
No, it's 1972 characters is what it is. It's as you would have looked in 1972 clothes at Chessman Con.
Yeah. There was definitely a Scooby-Doo thing going on there somewhere.
But of course, Mike is still the same.
Yes.
And in fact,
yes.
I think Mike's biggest contribution is the entire character of Dr. Plokta, who was not there originally. It was a joke because the name rhymed, and we introduced the character of Dr. Plokta for, I can't even remember why we introduced it. And then Mike just took it and ran with it.
And I did all comic strips of it. I've forgotten about the comic strips of Dr. Plokta.
Yeah, and
there's one of us all in bed. There's a cartoon of us all in bed, and I can't remember why. Alison got a king-size bed.
Yes, is there one of us all in bed? There's one of us all on the sofa. Any other questions, people? Because Edie's going to go. This is far too long.
No, you can go as long as you want.
I've put the Ready Plock cover up. Which has the Dr. Plokta action figure that Martin Easterbrook bought us, I believe. When Mike was younger, he doesn't really look much like Rowan Atkinson now, but when he was younger, he did look a lot like Rowan Atkinson, to the extent that I understand that when on holiday in places where nobody spoke English or had ever seen anyone from the UK before, small children would run after him going, Mr. Bean, Mr. Bean. Is that correct, Mike?
That's only a mild exaggeration.
Ready Breck is a brand of instant oatmeal in the UK. I should say that we had a lot because we did an entire cover on Transylvanian families, and I've discovered that Sylvanian families aren't called that in America. So 2/3 of our readership was American, and the entire cover makes no sense. Ready Plock makes no sense. It's a Ready Breck joke.
Yes.
So,
Ready Breck was advertised on TV for many years as central heating for kids, with video of children going to school in cold, wet weather with the orange glow around them had Ready Breck.
Very suspicious orange glow.
Yeah, I'm not sure they do that now. The past, it's a funny space. It's a funny place.
You're all still very involved in fandom after all these years. What keeps you involved?
John
That's where
Coxon.
our friends are.
Friends.
Yeah.
I like starting projects. Oh, I should plug my latest project, by the way, which is that if you were an attending or online member of the Worldcon, even if you didn't actually attend, then we're running a catch-up party, which is an online convention on, and by we, I am doing this, none of the others are doing it, but also Claire Brierley, John Coxon, Emily and Andrew January, and Meg McDonald are running a convention called Back to Our Futures, which is an online convention where we had the happy idea that it would be easier to do an online convention if you had a ready-made 250-item program just sitting there for people to watch. So we're having no new program, or very little new program, but we're gonna have parties and a bar and things like that, and a Discord.
But we'd previously done online conventions.
Yeah, no, punctuation is partly a Plokta thing. So
one more question.
How do you think the ubiquitous presence of okay, so one of the things that happened was that when we were together, we spent too much time surfing the internet and not interacting.
Wow.
When you're talking about reasons why Plokta didn't get as much done.
Yeah.
You know, we were definitely constrained by the fact that we had dial-up internet when we started. Yeah, so Back to Our Futures is the 1st to 3rd of November, and if you're a Worldcon, it's free for Worldcon members, but you do have to be a Worldcon member. That's what it is. You should have got email from the Glasgow Worldcon that tells you about it. And there is if you go to their website, through the member portal, there's a thing where you can sign up for more information about it. It is 1 to 3, 1st to 3rd of November. So just in a few weeks. We haven't started working on it really. I mean, we launched it, but then we said, oh, let's continue to recover, and we'll do it. We're doing it next month.
Well, I think we're pretty well running out of questions. And do you have any last statements that you want to make individually or all together?
The cat's called Grace and Purry.
Okay.
Yeah. Somebody asked.
Yeah.
When we got the 2005 Hugo, and we got together and went, each of us is going to have to give a short speech. And the speech that I gave, because I really felt that it was important, was, all of you out there in the audience, you can do this too.
And some people did. I mean, people, you know, I'm doing a podcast with Liz Batty, and she cited attending the Hugo ceremony in 2005 as one of her formative, you know. Oh yeah, no.
I'm glad to hear that.
So she didn't mention us specifically, but you know, we were there saying to people, do FANAC, you know, and it was all the third row people were.
You too can win a Hugo.
Like babies. Well, someone has to, right?
Neil's won a Hugo now, so yeah. Yep, they're catching up.
Neil's won a Hugo.
Didn't Neil Harrison get?
I don't think so.
It was the nominated,
he was a finalist. He was a finalist.
Finalist, yeah.
Oh well.
But I mean, Briardine Books is a great example of somebody going, oh wow, there is a space here. I could do these. I can create critical volumes. You know, I mean, I think they're not intended to earn money, but that's you know, people are out there doing things. You just kind of, they're not necessarily quite the same things, and they're not quite like fanzines. I think are in a quite difficult space because I think what people are doing with websites is very good, but a lot of them don't feel to me like they're managing to form the communities that we did. And I'd like to see more community forming activity. And Suzel, thank you, Suzel, for handing us our Hugo. I had completely forgotten that. I'm very sorry.
Yep.
Does
me
anyone
too.
have a photo? Hello to Mark Ortlieb's poker friends.
Gosh, you're up late.
Oh, he's up early.
Up very
Yeah.
early. Yeah.
Any-
Well done, any Australian that got to this one.
That's any other comments from the panel? And since we have no other questions in the Zoom, thanks for coming and spending a couple of hours telling us about Plokta. It sounds like a wonderful ride from the inside as well as the outside.
It was fun.
And thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.